Hi, Anindita. Nice to speak with you.
Nice to see you, Narina.
Last time we spoke about your research on street dogs. How is it going?
Recently, we are working on dog-human interactions on Indian streets, and we are getting some very interesting results, which some of which we have published. So we are finding that dogs would actually make friends with people not based on whether they are giving them food, but based on whether the people are showing them some love. So they cannot be bribed with food, but they can be bribed with a little petting on the head, which is very surprising because the current expectation from the past literature is the reverse, that dogs befriended humans because of the food, and then they became pets. But these dogs seem to be actually trusting people who show them love or attention, and not necessarily if they get food from us. So that's a very exciting result, and we are actually planning a new set of experiments following up on those and looking at long-term interactions of groups of dogs instead of single dogs.
How were you able to find it out?
We go to the streets and we find dogs, and then first round what we do is a student who has done all the experiments, he puts a piece of chicken on his hand and offers it to the dog, and he also puts a piece of chicken on the road and allows the dog to choose. And we see that majority of the dogs don't come to take the food from the hand, but they come to the road and take it. And then some dogs are petted on the head, and some dogs are not. And then we try to see if after the petting, the dogs are more prone to come and take food from the hand. And we see that when you do it one time, the dogs don't care. But then we follow some dogs over a long time. So you go back 1 day later, you go back 2 days later, you go back 3 days later, and the same dogs you follow for a month. And then we see that the dogs which were eating from the street start eating from the hand only if you've been petting them. But the dogs whom we don't pet don't change this behavior at all. So the food is always there, but with the food, they're not changing their response and not coming to take the food from the hand. But without the food, only with petting, they're coming and feeding from your hand.
Why is this result relevant?
So the understanding is right now that there were wolves, and then some wolves which were probably a little less aggressive and not getting enough food in their pack started, coming and picking up leftovers from human camps, and then started following these people for the food. If you think about it from the perspective of a dog, somebody can lure a dog for food and then beat it up, right? And that happens on the streets all the time. So these dogs, which are not pets, which are encountering people on an everyday basis, often face a lot of aggression from people. People shoo them away, they beat them up. So I guess what they learn is humans are not to be trusted. But when some human shows them some affection, those humans they eventually learn can be trusted. And I think what is important is that in the evolutionary paradigm, if you think of it, if this is something which is ingrained in them, that they come to people who show them love, people like who typically would be friendly towards animals are less likely to harm them than people who can lure them and then beat them up. Right? So evolutionarily, I guess it's not that they actively learned, but some dogs which happen to approach people for the love and not for the food stabilized better around humans than dogs which just came for the food. And then that would have probably been an adaptive behavior and has stayed on in the population.
What do we know actually about feelings between humans and dogs?
There is actually a lot of research going on in the Western world now on this hormone called oxytocin, which is typically known as the maternal hormone. And we know that mothers release a lot of oxytocin when they look at their babies, and not just mothers, all humans. We find babies cute because by looking at babies, our body releases oxytocin. And now there is a lot of literature which shows that this happens when we look at dogs also. Dogs look at humans and humans look at dogs. Both of us release oxytocin. So it looks like they have kind of become part of this, the closeness between dogs and humans are being explained in some terms by this phenomena which happens subconsciously in the body. But beyond that, I would say that looking at these dogs, which are not pets, but which interact with humans on a day-to-day basis, they seem to have an understanding of who is a good guy and who is a bad guy, in terms of whom to approach and whom not to approach. So obviously, they either judge us by our body language, or I don't know whether they are smelling the oxytocin we are releasing. Maybe.
What are you busy with? What kind of questions are you asking right now?
As I said, one of the things is we are continuing working on different experiments between dogs and human interactions. We are looking at human perceptions of dogs through surveys. We are also looking at the sterilization program and the long-term effect of sterilization on the dogs. So these are the two broad areas in which we are working. And we are also doing something very interesting, collaborating with physicists in the institute. And we are trying to look at hidden patterns in the behaviors of dogs. And we're trying to see if overall, when we look at behavior, does it have a pattern which is otherwise not visible? So dogs show all kinds of behaviors, and if you take all behaviors together, does this have a pattern which is like language patterns? So that's kind of a very theoretical thing that we are doing with our data, and it's fun because we are learning a lot of new things. We are also starting a project on understanding dog vocalizations. So why they bark and when they bark, and how does a bark uh, get a response from another dog, and do they have a language of their own? So that's kind of long term, and we are really excited.
Oh, nice. And what are you looking forward to for the next month?
There's a big conference coming up. It's a national level conference on behavior. We call it Understanding Behavior. It's in January, and we are doing it on our campus. I'm the convener, and we've got a very nice set of speakers lined up, and it's kind of interdisciplinary because we're not just bringing people who do animal behavior, but we are also bringing in people who do neurobiology and who do evolutionary biology and try to understand game theory and human behavior. So it's going to be a big thing, which is less than 6 months away.
I think that we have, in any case, to check in again and speak about it. Thank you so much, Anindita.
Great talking to you, Narina.
Thank you so much.